Picture this. You're standing in front of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's massive. It's ancient. And it's been keeping secrets for over 4,000 years. But what if I told you that behind these incredible monuments lie two of the most powerful gods in Egyptian mythology? Gods who didn't just influence how pyramids were built, but shaped an entire civilization? Today, we're diving deep into the hidden world of Osiris and Thoth, the divine masterminds behind Egypt's greatest achievements. From the afterlife mysteries locked inside pyramid chambers to the mathematical genius that made these wonders possible, we're about to uncover how these two gods changed everything. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at Egyptian pyramids the same way again. Let's start with a simple question. Why did ancient Egyptians spend decades building these massive stone mountains? The answer lies with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and it's way more fascinating than you might think. Imagine death not as an ending, but as the beginning of the most important journey of your life. That's exactly how ancient Egyptians saw it, and it's all because of Osiris. This green-skinned god with a pharaoh's crown wasn't just any deity. He was the first being to die and come back to life, making him the ultimate guide for everyone else's journey to the afterlife. Here's where it gets really interesting. Osiris didn't just die. He was murdered by his jealous brother Set, chopped into pieces, and scattered across Egypt. But his wife Isis, being the powerful goddess she was, gathered all the pieces and brought him back to life. This wasn't just a cool story the Egyptians told around campfires. This myth became the foundation of their entire belief system about death and resurrection. Think about it like this. If you believed that death was just a doorway to an even better life, wouldn't you want to make sure you were prepared? That's exactly what the Egyptians did. They saw Osiris as proof that death could be conquered, that life could continue in a paradise called the Field of Reeds. But here's the catch. You had to earn your way there. The pyramids weren't just tombs. They were like cosmic launching pads designed to help the pharaoh's soul make the journey to join Osiris in the afterlife. Every single detail was planned with this goal in mind. The narrow shafts inside the pyramids? They weren't for ventilation. They were star maps, pointing to specific constellations where the Egyptians believed the soul would travel. But wait, there's more. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh didn't just die and go to the afterlife. He literally became Osiris. This transformation wasn't automatic. It required elaborate rituals, specific burial procedures, and yes, the perfect tomb. The pyramid wasn't just a building. It was a machine designed to turn a dead king into a living god. Let's talk about the mummification process for a second, because this is where Osiris really shows his influence. Remember how Osiris was reassembled after being scattered? The Egyptians recreated this process with every mummy they made. They carefully removed organs, preserved the body, and wrapped it in linen, essentially following the same steps that Isis used to resurrect Osiris. It was like they were giving every dead person the Osiris treatment. The pyramid texts, those ancient hieroglyphic writings found inside some pyramids, are basically instruction manuals for becoming Osiris. They contain spells, prayers, and directions for navigating the afterlife. These aren't just random religious texts. They're detailed guides that tell the dead pharaoh exactly how to join Osiris and rule in the afterlife. Here's something that might blow your mind. The Egyptians built their pyramids on the west bank of the Nile River for a very specific reason. The west was where the sun set, where it died each day before being reborn in the east. This wasn't coincidence. It was cosmic symbolism. The pyramids were positioned to align with Osiris's daily journey through the underworld, following the same path as the sun. The shape of the pyramid itself tells the Osiris story. The pointed top reaches toward the heavens, symbolizing the pharaoh's ascension to join Osiris. The solid base represents the earthly realm, while the pyramid's internal chambers map out the journey from death to resurrection. Every angle, every corridor, every chamber was designed with Osiris's story in mind. But here's what makes this even more incredible. The Egyptians didn't just build one pyramid and call it a day. They built dozens of them over hundreds of years, each one incorporating new knowledge about Osiris and the afterlife. They were constantly improving their cosmic resurrection machines, learning from each pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. The influence of Osiris went beyond just pyramid construction. It shaped how Egyptians lived their daily lives. They believed that every person would eventually face the same judgment that Osiris faced, where their heart would be weighed against a feather of truth. This belief system created a civilization focused on justice, morality, and preparing for the afterlife from the moment you were born. Think about the resources that went into building these pyramids. Thousands of workers, decades of construction, enormous amounts of stone and precious materials. The Egyptians were willing to invest all of this because they genuinely believed in Osiris's promise of eternal life. The pyramids weren't just monuments to dead kings. They were investments in forever. Now let's talk about the brains behind the operation. Thoth, the ibis-headed god who is basically the ancient world's ultimate genius. While Osiris provided the spiritual reason for building pyramids, Thoth gave the Egyptians the knowledge and tools to actually build them. And trust me, without Thoth's influence, those pyramids would have been nothing more than piles of rocks. Thoth was the god of wisdom, writing, mathematics, and magic. Imagine having a deity whose job was literally to know everything and teach it to humans. That's Thoth. He was like the ultimate professor, librarian, and engineer all rolled into one divine package. The Egyptians believed that Thoth invented writing, created the calendar, and established the laws of mathematics that governed the universe. Here's where it gets mind-blowing. The mathematical precision of the pyramids wasn't just impressive for ancient times. It's impressive by today's standards. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is aligned to true north with an accuracy of just 3/60th of a degree. That's more precise than most modern buildings. How did they achieve this level of accuracy over 4,000 years ago? The Egyptians credited Thoth with giving them this knowledge. Let's break down some of the mathematical magic that Thoth supposedly taught the pyramid builders. The golden ratio, that special number that appears throughout nature and creates pleasing proportions, shows up repeatedly in pyramid construction. The ratio between the pyramid's height and base perimeter approximates pi, one of the most important numbers in mathematics. These weren't accidents. They were deliberate applications of mathematical principles that the Egyptians attributed to Thoth's wisdom. But Thoth's influence went way beyond just numbers. He was also the god of measurement and surveying. Before you can build a pyramid, you need to measure the land, calculate angles, and plan the entire structure. The Egyptians developed sophisticated surveying techniques that allowed them to work with incredible precision across vast distances. They could align structures with astronomical events, level foundations perfectly, and calculate the exact amount of materials needed. Think about the logistics of pyramid construction for a moment. You're moving massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, with nothing but human power, ramps, and levers. You need to know exactly where each block goes, how much weight each part of the structure can support, and how to maintain stability as the pyramid grows taller. This required advanced engineering knowledge that the Egyptians believed came directly from Thoth. The Egyptian calendar, which Thoth supposedly invented, was crucial for pyramid construction. Building a pyramid wasn't a quick project. It took decades. The Egyptians needed to plan construction around the Nile's annual flood, which brought both workers, farmers who couldn't work flooded fields, and transportation for heavy stones. They had to coordinate the work of thousands of people across multiple seasons and years. This required a sophisticated understanding of time and planning that they attributed to Thoth's wisdom. Here's something fascinating. The Egyptians believed that Thoth recorded everything. He was the divine bookkeeper who wrote down the deeds of every person and every god. This concept of divine record-keeping influenced how the Egyptians approached pyramid construction. They kept detailed records of their building projects, creating the world's first construction documentation. These records helped them refine their techniques and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. Thoth was also the god of magic, but Egyptian magic wasn't about pulling rabbits out of hats. It was about understanding the hidden laws that govern the universe and using that knowledge to achieve seemingly impossible things. The Egyptians saw pyramid construction as a form of magic, using mathematical principles to create structures that defied normal human capabilities. The hieroglyphic writing system itself, which the Egyptians believed Thoth invented, was essential for pyramid construction. These weren't just pretty pictures. They were a sophisticated communication system that allowed architects to record complex building plans, workers to understand their tasks, and future generations to learn from past projects. The pyramid texts we mentioned earlier, those instruction manuals for the afterlife, were written in hieroglyphs that Thoth supposedly created. But here's what's really incredible. Thoth's influence on pyramid construction created a feedback loop of knowledge. As the Egyptians built more pyramids, they learned more about mathematics, engineering, and astronomy. This knowledge was then attributed back to Thoth, reinforcing their belief in his wisdom and encouraging them to push the boundaries of what was possible. The tools and techniques that the Egyptians developed for pyramid construction, inspired by Thoth's wisdom, influenced their entire civilization. They used the same mathematical principles for building temples, planning cities, and creating art. The surveying techniques developed for pyramids were used for irrigation projects that fed the entire population. The organizational methods required for pyramid construction helped them manage one of the ancient world's most complex civilizations. Thoth's role as the god of time also influenced pyramid construction in subtle ways. The Egyptians believed that certain times were more auspicious for building than others. They aligned construction activities with celestial events, believing that starting work at the right time would ensure Thoth's blessing on the project. This created a connection between pyramid construction and the cosmic order that Thoth was believed to maintain. Now we're getting to the really juicy stuff, the pyramid texts. These aren't just ancient graffiti carved into stone walls. They're the world's oldest religious writings, and they're basically detailed instruction manuals for how to become a god in the afterlife. Both Osiris and Thoth play starring roles in these texts, and they reveal just how deeply these gods influenced Egyptian civilization. Imagine you're about to take the most important test of your existence. Literally. The pyramid texts are like having the answer key ahead of time. They contain over 700 spells, prayers, and incantations designed to help the deceased pharaoh navigate the dangers of the afterlife and successfully join Osiris in eternal paradise. These texts weren't just religious poetry. They were practical guides for cosmic transformation. Let's start with the Osiris connection. Many of the pyramid texts directly reference the Osiris myth, but they don't just tell the story. They teach the dead pharaoh how to recreate Osiris's journey from death to resurrection. The texts contain spells that help the pharaoh's soul reassemble itself, just like Osiris was reassembled by Isis. They include directions for overcoming the same challenges that Osiris faced, essentially turning every pharaoh into a new version of the resurrection god. Here's where it gets really interesting. The pyramid texts aren't just about copying Osiris's journey. They're about surpassing it. The pharaoh is instructed to not only join Osiris but to become a powerful god in his own right. Some texts describe the pharaoh as becoming even more powerful than Osiris, ruling over parts of the cosmos that Osiris doesn't control. This wasn't blasphemy. It was the ultimate goal of Egyptian royal afterlife beliefs. But Thoth's influence is equally important in these texts. Remember, Thoth was the god of wisdom and writing, so it makes sense that these written instructions would be attributed to his divine knowledge. Many pyramid texts specifically invoke Thoth's help in guiding the deceased through the afterlife. Thoth is described as the pharaoh's divine advisor, helping him navigate the complex bureaucracy of the afterlife and pass the various tests required for eternal life. The texts reveal something amazing about how the Egyptians viewed knowledge and wisdom. They believed that the words themselves had power. Simply knowing the right spell, saying the right words, or having the correct knowledge could literally transform reality. This is pure Thoth influence, the idea that wisdom and knowledge are the ultimate sources of power in the universe. Let's talk about some specific examples from the pyramid texts. There are spells for crossing the celestial waters that separate the land of the living from the land of the dead. There are incantations for transforming into different animals or birds, allowing the pharaoh's soul to take various forms during its journey. There are prayers for obtaining the favor of different gods and goddesses who guard various parts of the afterlife. One of the most fascinating aspects of the pyramid texts is how they describe the pharaoh's transformation into a star. The Egyptians believed that after death, the pharaoh would literally become a star in the sky, joining the imperishable stars that never set. This wasn't just metaphorical. They believed it was a literal transformation. The texts contain detailed instructions for the stellar metamorphosis, including which constellations to join and how to navigate the celestial sphere. The texts also reveal the incredible sophistication of Egyptian afterlife beliefs. This wasn't just about going to heaven and playing harps. The Egyptian afterlife was a complex realm with its own geography, politics, and social structure. The pharaoh had to know how to navigate this realm, who to talk to, what to avoid, and how to claim his rightful place as a god. The pyramid texts were essentially diplomatic handbooks for the afterlife. Here's something that might surprise you. The pyramid texts show that the Egyptians believed in multiple souls. They distinguished between different aspects of a person's spirit, the Ka, the Ba, the Ak, and others. Each of these spiritual components had its own journey after death, and the pyramid texts contain specific instructions for each one. This wasn't just religious complexity for its own sake. It reflected a sophisticated understanding of consciousness and identity that influenced all aspects of Egyptian culture. The influence of these texts extended far beyond just pharaohs. While originally written for kings, the ideas in the pyramid texts eventually spread to non-royal Egyptians. Later versions, known as the coffin texts and eventually the Book of the Dead, made these afterlife instructions available to anyone who could afford them. This democratization of afterlife knowledge transformed Egyptian society, creating a culture where everyone could aspire to divine transformation after death. But here's what's really remarkable. The pyramid texts weren't just copied from pyramid to pyramid. They evolved and adapted over time. New spells were added, old ones were modified, and the entire collection grew more sophisticated with each generation. This shows that the Egyptians were actively developing their understanding of the afterlife, constantly refining their cosmic instruction manual based on new insights and experiences. The texts also reveal how deeply astronomy influenced Egyptian religious beliefs. Many spells reference specific stars, constellations, and celestial events. The pharaoh's journey through the afterlife was mapped onto the movement of stars across the sky. This connection between the afterlife and astronomy influenced Egyptian timekeeping, architecture, and even daily religious practices. The pyramid texts show us that Osiris and Thoth weren't just distant gods to be worshipped. They were active participants in every Egyptian's ultimate journey. Osiris provided the destination and the promise of resurrection, while Thoth provided the knowledge and wisdom needed to get there. Together, they created a comprehensive system for achieving immortality that influenced every aspect of Egyptian civilization. Here's where things get really mind-blowing. The influence of Osiris and Thoth didn't stop with pyramid construction. These two gods fundamentally shaped Egyptian civilization in ways that rippled out to influence the entire ancient world and continue to impact us today. We're talking about a divine influence that lasted for over 3,000 years and created innovations that we still use in modern times. Let's start with the big picture. The Egyptian obsession with the afterlife, driven by Osiris's promise of resurrection, created the world's first civilization that was genuinely focused on long-term thinking. While other ancient cultures were worried about next season's harvest or the next battle, Egyptians were planning for eternity. This mindset led to innovations in preservation, record-keeping, and monumental architecture that no other civilization achieved. Think about mummification for a second. This wasn't just about preserving dead bodies. It was advanced chemistry and biology. The Egyptians developed sophisticated techniques for preventing decay, understanding of human anatomy, and knowledge of chemical preservation that wouldn't be matched in other parts of the world for thousands of years. All of this came from their desire to help people follow Osiris's path to resurrection. The influence of Thoth on Egyptian education and knowledge-keeping was equally revolutionary. The Egyptians created the world's first formal education system, complete with schools, standardized curriculum, and professional scribes. They developed libraries, maintained detailed records, and created copying systems that preserved knowledge across generations. This wasn't just about being organized. It was about honoring Thoth's role as the god of wisdom and ensuring that divine knowledge was passed down properly. Here's something that might surprise you. The Egyptian medical system, which was incredibly advanced for its time, was directly influenced by both Osiris and Thoth. The mummification process taught Egyptians about human anatomy, while their belief in Thoth's wisdom encouraged them to record medical knowledge systematically. Egyptian medical papyri contain surgical procedures, pharmaceutical recipes, and diagnostic techniques that were centuries ahead of their time. But the influence goes even deeper. The Egyptian concept of Marat, cosmic order and justice, was directly connected to both Osiris and Thoth. Osiris was the judge of the dead, while Thoth was the recorder of deeds and the maintainer of cosmic balance. This created a civilization that was fundamentally focused on justice, truth, and moral behavior. The Egyptians developed some of the world's first formal legal systems, complete with courts, judges, and written laws. The agricultural innovations that allowed Egyptian civilization to thrive were also influenced by these gods. The annual flooding of the Nile, which was essential for Egyptian agriculture, was seen as connected to Osiris's death and resurrection cycle. The Egyptians developed sophisticated irrigation systems, crop rotation techniques, and food storage methods that were inspired by their religious beliefs about cycles of death and rebirth. Let's talk about the influence on art and architecture. The Egyptian artistic style, which remained remarkably consistent for over 3,000 years, was directly shaped by religious beliefs about Osiris and Thoth. Egyptian art wasn't just decorative, it was functional, designed to serve religious and magical purposes. The proportions, symbols, and techniques used in Egyptian art were all connected to their understanding of divine mathematics and cosmic order. The Egyptian writing system, which they believed Thoth invented, became the foundation for later alphabetic writing systems. The concept of using symbols to represent sounds and ideas spread from Egypt to other civilizations, eventually leading to the development of the alphabets we use today. Without Thoth's supposed invention of writing, the entire course of human communication might have been different. Here's where it gets really fascinating. The Egyptian influence on Greek and Roman civilization was enormous, and much of it can be traced back to ideas about Osiris and Thoth. Greek philosophers studied in Egypt, learning about Egyptian mathematics, medicine, and religious concepts. The Greek god Hermes was directly influenced by Thoth, inheriting many of his attributes and functions. The mystery religions that became popular in the Roman Empire borrowed heavily from Osiris myths about death and resurrection. The impact on early Christianity is particularly interesting. Many scholars have noted similarities between the Osiris myth and the Christian story of Jesus. Both involve a god who dies and is resurrected, promising eternal life to followers. While the connections are debated, it's clear that the Egyptian concepts of death, resurrection, and eternal judgment influenced the religious thinking of the entire Mediterranean world. But let's not forget the practical innovations. The Egyptian calendar, supposedly invented by Thoth, became the basis for later calendar systems. Egyptian mathematical concepts influenced Greek mathematics, which in turn influenced Islamic mathematics, which eventually influenced European mathematics. The geometric principles used in pyramid construction influenced architectural techniques that spread throughout the ancient world. The Egyptian concept of professional specialization, having dedicated priests, scribes, architects, and craftsmen, was revolutionary for its time. This wasn't just about economic efficiency. It was about honoring the different aspects of divine knowledge that Thoth represented. The idea that different people could master different types of wisdom led to a level of professional development that other civilizations didn't achieve for centuries. Even today, we can see the influence of these ancient Egyptian concepts. Our modern focus on education, record-keeping, and professional specialization all have roots in Egyptian innovations inspired by Thoth. Our legal systems, with their emphasis on written law and formal procedures, owe something to Egyptian concepts of cosmic justice connected to Osiris. The Egyptian influence on architecture is still visible today. The use of geometric proportions, the emphasis on monumental scale, and the integration of symbolic meaning into building design all trace back to Egyptian innovations. Modern architects still study Egyptian buildings to understand how to create structures that are both functional and meaningful. Perhaps most importantly, the Egyptian concept that knowledge and wisdom are the ultimate sources of power, pure Thoth influence, has shaped human civilization ever since. The idea that education, learning, and intellectual achievement are valuable in themselves, not just as tools for making money or gaining power, is fundamentally Egyptian in origin. And there you have it. The incredible story of how two Egyptian gods shaped one of history's greatest civilizations. From the spiritual motivation provided by Osiris to the mathematical genius inspired by Thoth, these divine influences created innovations that we still benefit from today. The next time you see a pyramid, remember that you're not just looking at an ancient tomb. You're looking at the physical manifestation of humanity's first serious attempt to conquer death itself, guided by gods who promised that knowledge and wisdom could unlock the secrets of eternity. But here's the thing. This story isn't over. Archaeological discoveries are constantly revealing new insights about Egyptian civilization, and we're still learning how deeply these ancient beliefs influence the world we live in today. From the mathematics in your smartphone to the legal system that protects your rights, the influence of Osiris and Thoth continues to shape our world. If you found this journey into ancient mysteries as fascinating as I did, you're going to love what's coming next. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we're just getting started exploring the hidden connections between ancient civilizations and modern life. Next week, we're diving into the secrets of Mayan astronomy and how their calendar system predicted events that are still happening today. And here's something cool. Drop a comment below telling me which ancient mystery you'd like us to explore next. Are you curious about the lost technology of Atlantis? Want to know how the Sumerians supposedly learned to write from the gods? Or maybe you're interested in the ancient Indian texts that describe what sounds suspiciously like nuclear weapons. Whatever catches your curiosity, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if it opened your eyes to something new, and share it with anyone who loves history, mysteries, or just wants to understand how the ancient world continues to influence our modern lives. The more people who join our community of curious minds, the deeper we can dig into these incredible stories that connect our past to our present. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the secrets of the pyramids. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, The ancient world has way more to teach us than we ever imagined.